Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to look at making a simple water fountain. It's not meant to be photorealistic or anything like that. It's just to demonstrate certain elements, certain aspects of the particle system component. Without a doubt, the particle system is the most complex component in all of Unity, and so this is a good way to demonstrate certain elements of it. So, anyways, the one thing I've done ahead of time is I simply made this image. There's absolutely nothing special about it. You could actually just use the default particle that comes with Unity, but the reason why I use this shape is because it's not symmetrical. The reason why that matters is because I will show you how to rotate a particle to give it extra sense of movement. But the thing about a circle, if it's perfectly circular, you can't tell it's rotating. So that's the only thing that matters about this image, is that it's not a perfect circle. So let's go ahead and take this image and we're going to apply it to a material. So when you import this, and again, importing is just literally dragging and dropping the 2D image from an external folder into the asset area. That's it. So once you import it, all you have to do is I took the texture type and I changed it from default to sprite 2D. And then you click on apply and that's it. So let's create a material. So right click, create material. And we'll call this water mat. And with the water mat selected, drag and drop the image onto albedo. And then we're actually not going to change the color or anything like that here. The reason for it is we need to turn this into a specific type of shader. Since we're going to use this for the particle system, there are several options. I'm going to go with mobile, and then I'm going to go with particles, and I'm going to go additive, but there are other ones that you could use too. Now let's go ahead and create the particle system. So game object, and then we go to effects, and we go to particle system. So what we're going to do is first, these particles are way too huge. So we're going to change the size to 0.2. We're actually going to come back to size later on, but we need to start somewhere. Also, that's way too low of a volume. So size was too big and volume was too low. So come down here to emission, and this is where you can change the rate. Now, this is a good time to mention max particles. This is the rate over time. So depending on how many particles are on the screen at a time, which is based on the rate and the lifetime, okay? If that number exceeds the max particles, then what you'll see is there'll be a stop. There won't be any more particles created until some particles get destroyed. So watch what happens when I bump this up. See how there is a gap there? That's because we hit that max 1,000 particles. So let's change that to, say, 3,500. Don't know if we'll need to keep 500, but we'll use that for the minute. Now, this is going up, but as it says, what goes up must come down, particularly we want this to look like a fountain. So what do? Well, we need to apply gravity. Gravity is up here in the main module. So we go to gravity modifier, and a lot of this is just trial and error. Let's do like 0.2. That's not bad, actually. So depends how high you want it to go up in the air. So depending how close you are, that looks okay, but I think it's a little bit slow. So start speed, let's try 6. Now, one of the things to know about start speed is that this is going to change how far it travels, okay? So it might travel up further than you want, or because it's lasting so long, it might go further through the ground than you want. So keep in mind that as you change one element, you might have to change another. Okay, so depending what you're looking for, I want this to be a little bit more concentrated. I think that the cone comes out too far, so we'll show you how to change that. So here for shape, as soon as you click on shape, you can see the perimeter. So we're just going to shrink that in. You can also shrink in the origin. So you can do that too. And again, this is really trial and error. No particular science involved with this. And again, it is also depending on what you're looking for. Now, since you're going from a concentration here to more spread out here, you also may want these particles to get small, because right now you can overtly see them disappear. So you actually might want them to get smaller over time. And also you might want this to be more concentrated here. So we can change that as well. So size over lifetime. Going to click here. It gives you some default ones. You can click on one, or you can just move the dots yourself. Over here on the left, you can control what the size start is. So even though we did start size of 0.2 here, I said I was going to come back to it. Well, this is a multiplier, so we're going to make this like a 4x multiplier. And we also don't want it to get too small, so we'll move that up a bit. And now we run it. Okay, so that's a bit overdoing. That's a nice effect in of itself, but it's a much more glowy effect. So that'd be more like sparkles or something like that. So if you find something that you like the look of, but it wasn't what you're intended to do, make a mental note. Now, keep in mind, we're still using the default particle. So when we use ours, it's going to look quite different. So actually, let's do that right now. And you'll see how much that changes. You're not going to have that glowy aspect to it. Okay. So let's go to so first of all, let's shrink this. Actually, rather than doing that, let's just change the multiplier, because I had it as 4. Let's bring that down to 3, so that'll make it smaller. And we will now make it translucent and give it color. So I'm going to leave the start color as white. You might find yourself needing to change dramatically. Over time, you might find maybe you're doing fire, and so you want it to change from like red to orange to yellow. So by giving it a starting color, you may skew the results. So I leave it as white to begin with. You may find you want just the opposite, though. So we are now going to go to a few things. So rotation over time, as you could see, they weren't rotating. So let's do this. And the rotation is how many degrees will rotate over lifetime. So it lasts a long time, so like 1,080. So you're talking rotating, what, 3 full times? So might need to rotate even more than that, but that's a start. Tell you what, let's run it with that so you can see that one change. See? They're rotating now. It looks wrong because of their size, but we're working on that. Okay, so we know that 3 is still too big, so let's try 2. All right, so now we're starting to see some breakage. That's good. Now that might be too little for your taste. You may not want it to get quite that small, so you just take right here for the system, for the size over time. Okay, so we said we want to apply color. So color over lifetime, we'll click here. Click here. So basically what you're doing is these are the key points, and then you change some element of it. So the bottom is color, the top is transparency. So we click here, and then choose what color. I'm not being terribly precise, so I'm just kind of eyeballing this. And then this one we click, and we also want it to be bluish. Now, you may find that you want it to turn to a more whitish color because it's thinner, it's not as concentrated. Now, here is the translucence. So this, we actually have a nice number, so it's easy enough to keep the same. So let's bring that down to like 99. Again, you click on the key and then you get the number that you want. So yes, you can change translucence over time. So maybe it's some kind of energy attack that's being made with the particles. So you want them to glow at first, but then have them disappear by the end. So you can either make them smaller or you can make them translucent to the point in which you cannot see them. That's why I'm saying I think that this is a good example of a project because you have a wide range of things that you do. So now we're actually really close to where we want to be. And as you can see down here, you really get that kind of chaotic feeling that you would not get if you were using circles. Because circles, like I said, you can rotate them, you just can't tell that they're rotating. So you may find that the size, you can still see, because of how big they are, you can really see the rotation. So you might find that you want to mess with the size a little bit. A few other things you can do. As far as you could simply, again, increase what the rate over time is, how many particles there are, so bump it up to, say, 600, and now it doesn't have to be quite as big. So you can change the multiplier here, or we can just change it up here. We'll make this like 0.18 rather than 0.2. So again, since I increased the concentration, I increased the rate, I realized that I didn't have to have the size be quite as big. So pretty much at this point, it's arbitrary as to how much more you want to do. But that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. So you've seen applying of gravity, you've seen changing the shape, you've seen applying of rotation, changing size over time, you've seen adding color. You can change color over time, you can add translucence, you can change translucence over time. What you could do is you could put some kind of like base in here, which really isn't part of the particle system, but you could just put like a base in there if you wanted to. Okay, brief splice there as I swapped to 3D Builder. This isn't meant to be a full tutorial. I have a whole bunch of other videos already about 3D Builder. If you haven't watched any of them, 3D Builder is a free-to-use 3D modeler that comes free with Windows 10. If your computer doesn't have it pre-installed, you can download it, again, for free from the App Store. Or the Windows Store, whatever they're calling it now. So we're just going to go to Insert, Cylinder, and then what we're going to do is this object's already selected, so we go to Object, we go to Duplicate. I'm going to come over here and deselect all and get rid of Sticky Select. I'm going to stretch this object vertically and then shrink it. And now we just want to center this object inside of this one. If you've seen my other videos, you'll know why I'm doing this. If not, you'll see in just a minute. Okay, so let's make that a little bit. Okay. So we're going to take this object, we're going to shrink this down. Take this one, move it back over. The idea is that this top one is going to be used as a carving tool. So with the top one selected, go to Edit, go to Subtract, and what it'll do is it'll subtract the object that is selected. So whatever is selected will be removed, plus the portion of any object it's overlapping with. So watch what happens. It carves that one out. So now you kind of have a nice little basin, not quite deep enough, so let's actually undo that. Push it down oops. Gonna deselect all again. Let's push that down a little bit more. And then again, one object is selected. We click on Subtract. There we go. So what we do is you just go to the File menu, and you can save this as a 3MF, so you have your project file, but you also want to save it as an OBJ, which is short for, it's basically an object format, obviously. And then we'll be right back to Unity. And we're back. As I said, I saved the 3D object as an OBJ file type, and then I simply dragged and dropped it from that folder into the asset area. Now, for whatever reason, objects made in 3D Builder are enormous, so we're going to have to shrink this down a bit. So let's make this like 0.2. See how that looks. And click apply, which I didn't, so it warns you and then applies it. Let's drag and drop that into the environment. So kind of big. So let's rotate this. Clearly it's going to be 90 degrees. So it looks like -90 will get us what we want. And just as this starts at 0, 0, 0, that's approximately where you'd want this. You might have to adjust the height because it's meant to be below the fountain level. So you might have to adjust that a bit, but other than that, it's a good starting point. And you can see the fountain is going way outside of this, so you could either shrink the fountain in or make this bigger. Let's go ahead and make the fountain a little bit bigger. So let's make this like 1.5 and 1.5. And then we can take our fountain and we can also shrink it in, as I mentioned, with shape, which is right here. Once you have shape selected, let's hit stop. You could just pull this in a little bit, and even a little bit makes a huge difference. So there we go, we've got a fountain. And let's raise our camera up a little bit. Tilt it down a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some water in here. So for this one, rather than making it externally, we're just going to use an internal 3D object. So just going to use cylinder. And again, this needs to start at, whoops, wrong one, 0, 0, 0. I'm going to raise it a little bit. And let's scale this in. There we go. And now this needs to be much bigger. Okay. And we can't use the same water mat, so we'll just create a new one. And we'll call this water mat 2. Because in this one, we want to make the changes within the actual material, whereas we don't make the changes in the material here. We made the changes in the particle system. So we'll click here. We'll make this like a blue color, try to match what was there. Maybe a little bit darker since it's deeper. And actually, let's go back. I forgot the translucence is down here. And we just apply that. Not as translucent as I wanted it to be. Opaque. There we go. I'd forgotten I left it as opaque. I needed to change it to transparent. And there you go. It's definitely, you can see the inner edge now. So again, it's not meant to be high-end, just a simple little tutorial that covers all these different elements of particle systems. And we also touched on material and a little bit of 3D modeling as well. So again, I hope that this was helpful. I hope you have a good night. And let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see.